Hello. Happy Sunday. It's Sunday, June 6th. Today is Boxing Day, I guess. Weird to have combat sports on a Sunday. That's not pro wrestling. This is a pretty good book, by the way. It's a pictorial history of boxing. I got it years ago. Some great photos in here with stories. I've got it for $4. It's by Sam Andre and Nat Fleischer. Just a pictorial history of the sport of boxing, at least up until late 90s when I picked it up. But anyway, June 6th, the only reason I'm opening with that, obviously, is because tonight's the night we get Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Logan Paul. Yeah, I had to think about that because not for nothing, I was confused on those Paul brothers for a little while there. And that's my fault. I'm an old man. Say what you want, boomer. However you want to phrase it. Apologies for Memorial Day weekend. I didn't do a Sunday submission because, I was hungover, had some friends in from out of town, and we'll just leave it at that. So, but I'm back, and obviously today's a big one. We have a lot of stuff to get to. Obviously, we had the UFC Vegas event last night with Rosenstrike putting his stamp on where he stands amongst his division, and then there's just some noticeable wins that you want to. If you didn't catch LFA 109 on UFC Fight Pass, I highly recommend you watch it. I interviewed the co-main event winner, Justin Wetzel, for another outlet, and he got a call. I mean, he could have been on the Ultimate Fighter had COVID not impacted his fighting career. He had a fight canceled almost like 2 or 3 times. So, but he picked up a win. And excuse me, and the main event too was someone that's already been on the Contender Series. But if you didn't watch LFA 109, you definitely need to check it out because the 2 men that finished off that card, you're gonna see them in the UFC soon. So let's get right into it. By the way, here we go. MMANews.com. We got the full result for UFC Vegas 28 up there last night, and all the content coming up for tonight's Mayweather Paul. I'm going to talk at length about that, by the way, just because I had an interesting discussion last night about everything, and of course you can catch this video, all our interviews and stuff for upcoming UFC cards at the MMANews.com YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, click the bell notification on the MMANews.com YouTube channel where these videos live. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get into it. And if you don't follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Carbazel. You can see all the interviews that I do for outside of MMA News and all the other content that I do for the other combat sports outlets. So let's get right into it. Listen, you know how I know an event's going to do well on pay-per-view? It's when the casual combat sports fan talks about it. So if there's somebody that I know doesn't really watch, they watch the stick and ball sports. Like last night, I was at a local watering hole, a couple of familiar faces there, and I overheard them. I heard Logan Paul, Floyd Mayweather, and I was just like, okay, that's usually for me an indicator of how well a pay-per-view is going to do. So this Fan Mio pay-per-view, I know the selling points. When they announced this fight early on a few months ago, you could have bought the pay-per-view earlier and it was cheaper. And then the closer you get, like if you try to buy it tonight, you're going to pay the max price out. So I think you could have got it for as little as like $25 or $20 or something when they first announced it. Listen, I had the reaction everyone else had, but at the end of the day, I think Scott Coker said it best. I mean, he calls it these YouTuber, because it's not celebrity boxing, right? It's Floyd Mayweather is probably the greatest boxer that there is, but so it's not celebrity boxing because it's a real boxer versus some guy. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful to the Paul brothers, because I do agree with and we have that video on the website here. I think we have it on the website here. Let's take a look. Where Jake Paul kind of speaks his mind about the I mean, I know that's news a couple of days old and we have a lot of the stuff from last night up, plus the stuff that's coming up today. While we have it up, if you don't know where to watch it, it's a Showtime pay-per-view, so the asking price is $49.99. I know, again, if you did it through the Fan Mio thing that this was announced through, then you can get you could have gotten it for way cheaper. Oh, look, we got a newsletter. I didn't know that. I started a newsletter that I forgot to get to update the last 2 weeks. But anyway, so if you don't know about tonight's match, so Mayweather versus Paul, it's 8 rounds, non-sanctioned, which means I think the only real official in the ring is going to be the referee. There's no judges. There's not going to be a winner. It's not going to go to points if it does go all 8 rounds and nobody gets too, bopped in the head too much or what have you. The thing of it is, there's like a 35-pound difference. I forget how he weighed in. I just shared the tweet this morning. Let me take a look. So here's Logan Paul's weighed in at 189.5 pounds. Floyd Mayweather, I mean, he's 155, I guess because that's just what he's used to doing, right? So he's 34.5 pounds heavier than Mayweather. So listen, there's pools out there. I know DraftKings has a pool, but because this is not like a real, it's an exhibition. I guess you can't bet on it, or there's ways you can bet on it, but there's no it's hard not to have if I have to look, but Mayweather's got to be like a negative 1,200, 1,300 favorite, or more than that, 2,000 or something to win this, because listen. One of the discussions we had on the podcast that I do, Coast to Coast Combat Hour, on Tuesday was, and I couldn't remember the coach's name back then, and I wrote it on my notes now for this one. So, Chael Sonnen's striking coach, Clayton Hires, is a boxing guy, right? And back when McGregor Mayweather happened, this talk of A side and B side, the A side gets to get more things that they want. So, I'm pretty sure that because Mayweather is agreeing to this, he's the A side. It's on Showtime. That's another big clue right there. It's on Showtime, Mayweather Promotion, Showtime Family, whatever you want to call all the names attaching to them to themselves. Usually that's an indicator of this is definitely he's again the A side in this whole situation, right? So the thing that I mentioned, because when I couldn't remember Mr. Hires' name, because he did an interview with Sonnen where they talked about with Mayweather as the A side, he gets to have, they tried to make the news of the weight of the boxing gloves. For those of you that don't know or that don't train, a lot of folks train in 16 to 20 ounce gloves. So changing from 10 to 12 or anything lighter than that, it's always going to be preferred for both guys because their hands are going to move a little faster with the lighter weighted gloves, and it's just enough of padding to protect them from hurting their hands, and the training with the heavier glove kind of helps with your punching cardio and your hand speed and stuff like that. So no one's really going to have a problem with that. That's why it really doesn't matter. I don't know why this news it happened with Mayweather McGregor, and it happened earlier this week leading up to tonight. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, that's probably something that I don't know if it's a marketing ploy or whatever from the Mayweather side, but it's probably something he prefers. Although a heavier glove would probably favor him too against a bigger guy. One thing about guys that are muscular and bigger than you in combat is that those big muscles require a lot of oxygen. So, which is why a lot of people feel that Mayweather will probably drag this out all 8 rounds to make it fun and exhibition. The same could have been said for when he fought Tenshin over in Japan. I think that was co-promoted with Ryzen. And he dropped Tenshin like nobody's business. I think he sends a message if he does damage to Logan Paul early. He sends a message to stop this YouTube stuff, YouTube versus some athlete stuff, because I know one was KSI, who's another YouTuber. Then the guy that Jake Paul knocked out was a basketball guy. And then he fought Ben Askren, which was, that's more of a feather in his cap because now you're coming closer to the realm of fighting in combat sports space when you finish somebody like Ben Askren Granted, he's at the end of his career, and he chose the worst striker because Ben Askren used to impose his wrestling on all his opponents in MMA. If you didn't watch him in Bellator and won, but it's worth noting that uh, tonight nobody asked or asked the question of what's the ring size. Because like if you look at the Jake Paul Tyron Woodley, I don't know who the A side in that is. I'm assuming it's Jake Paul, but if it is Jake Paul, we'll know for sure if they use that smaller ring that they had at the Triller event against Ben Askren. So why do I bring that up? If you've watched enough of Woodley's fights, Woodley likes to draw you in to either, I mean, again, this is not MMA, but it's to explode power towards his opponent, whether it be a takedown or his right hand that he's dropped people with. You know what I mean? So he likes to move away to draw someone into a false sense of security, dominate, like they're doing something, and then take that away from them. I wouldn't be surprised if that matchup has a smaller ring, because it would favor Jake Paul. It leaves Woodley nowhere to run and probably has to react sooner to someone that's within striking distance. I'm not going to be surprised tonight if the ring is sizable. There's a lot of room in it, so that Mayweather has the room to use his footwork and have Logan Paul tire himself out trying to land something on him. That's what I'm expecting. I mean, expecting that for at least 4 rounds if he doesn't try to work his body early or wear him out early. And then the other thing is that Clayton Hires brought up again. You'd have to go back to 2017 when they did the podcast on the Chael Sonnen's You're Welcome podcast. But the other thing is the thickness or the padding on the boxing ring. So I mean, boxing rings are padded because obviously the boxers, they get knocked down, so they should. So even though they're doing damage to each other, some sort of way it protects them for when they fall. But the thing is, the thickness of it can either help or impede, depending on what you train for and what you're used to. So I forget what Hire said, but I know he said the thicker one, it's probably the less thicker one would favors Mayweather, so he can move around better. And the thicker one would tire a less experienced boxer out, like I guess in that sense, in that case it was McGregor. So tonight, in this case, it's going to be Logan Paul. So excuse me. So that's pretty much where I see that going. I don't think we're going to see these type of matchups go away. I think that there's something to be said for the money opportunities that are being made available to folks like Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren. I mean, Malky Kawa has done several interviews. He's Tyron Woodley's manager, about the type of payday that Woodley's going to get from this. And I think he did one with MMA Fighting where he said he hopes Woodley makes enough that he can just walk away from fighting. Speaking with folks on my own podcast, the one I do with Matt Hawkins, Coast to Coast Combat Hour, one thing, when I spoke with Joey Beltran, who's fought everywhere, UFC, Bellator, kickboxing, boxing, he's a bare knuckle champ right now. And one thing, when I asked him of all the combat sports, I mean, he prefers bare knuckle, especially at his age, because he flat out admits mixed martial arts MMA training is hard. That's why it's a young man's sport. That's why you see these guys when they get 35, 36, 37, or 40, people talk about them being old and stuff like that, go to belt. I have to take offense because I'm of that age, but it is a young man's sport. But if you're so good at your one discipline like Floyd Mayweather is, you can continue to do it, but not with making money the way that he's making money, and not so much on the line as far as what you're risking when you're fighting another high level professional combat sports athlete in the combat sports you're in, same age, same level, similar amount of time training. And one thing Mayweather said that I found really interesting was that he said, I retired from boxing. I never retired from being an entertainer. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, what do we all tune into sports for, right? Whether it be combat sports or whatever you're watching, professional wrestling or, uh, you know, MMA. That's my Soccer Robo Hensel Gracie shirt. Um, you know what I mean? I mean, we do. If you're not the one doing it, and you don't work in it, or you don't cover it, or it's not part of your business or side hustle. It's entertainment for you too, right? You enjoy it. You enjoy watching it. Um, so in that sense, I'm not mad at Floyd Mayweather at all. I know it's funny because it's like folks used to hate on him a lot. Like, I mean, the MMA versus boxing thing came out. That was kind of like a trend when he fought McGregor. But which I know I've touched on this earlier before. I find that to be just a stupid way to build up folks to tune in, because it's boxing, period. It's not boxing versus anything, because both men are boxing. Even this exhibition tonight, even though it's unsanctioned, it's still boxing. You know, there's no one's going to go throw any leg kicks or do any takedowns. It's just it's a straight boxing match, and that's what Floyd's been doing for, made his career on. So, the boxer, I said this on my podcast, so I'm going to say it here. The boxer, for all these things in the future, whether they go away or not, Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley, Logan Paul tonight with Mayweather, the seasoned boxer is going to win the boxing match, no matter what level athlete they face from somewhere else. The likelihood, it's the what if factor that makes us tune in, right? So, the puncher's chance, everyone has it. I'm gonna go out on and say, yeah, sure, maybe Logan Paul has a puncher's chance tonight. Does it happen? I seriously doubt it. Especially, I mean, if you've ever watched just look up a Floyd Mayweather Jr. highlight. I don't see. It's probably good. Like I said, it's probably going to be a nice size ring. I doubt Logan Paul's going to touch him outside of bunching him up in a corner in a clinch, and the referee breaks him up, and then like like a verbal kint from Usual Suspects. Floyd Mayweather is going to be going behind him or on the other side of the ring or something, and he'll do that, tire him out, and wear him out. But there's always a puncher's chance, and that what if factor. That's why we tuned into Mayweather McGregor. That's why we tuned into Askren, Jake Paul, and that's why we're probably going to tune in tonight, right? So I just wanted to say that. But in saying that, in regards to Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley down the line, the seasoned boxer, as far as like on paper boxing rules, it might be Jake Paul, which is probably what makes that more interesting. But again, Tyron Woodley's not a slouch when it comes to facing another man who's trying to punch him. He's just being limited into what he can do in that matchup. So that one's actually more interesting, because that at least it's still the Jake Paul seems to keep it in the combat sports realm, whereas Logan is more along the line, with the exception of tonight. Because I mean, I know did he do it with KSI twice? I forget how that whole thing happened, because I didn't really watch it. But anyway, had to talk about that a lot, because that's obviously what's likely trending as I do this, as we're coming on the afternoon here on Sunday. So it's tonight, once again, tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, Showtime pay-per-view, and you order it however you want to order it if you're going to watch it. Let's get back to so UFC Vegas 28 last night. This video interview here happened during that event. So this pay-per-view, UFC 263, is this coming weekend. Everybody's back this weekend, by the way, after the Memorial Day. We got PFL Thursday, Bellator 260 Friday, and this is the big pay-per-view event for this coming weekend. So, Adesanya Victoria, the reason why this is the headlining event is because it's the one that it's the split decision that there are folks that feel Vittori won that fight when they first fought. And obviously since then, both men have gotten only better at their craft as combat sports athletes. So what that's the reason why this is headlining, but not for nothing. I mean, you can look to the right of the little ad that we got here on the website. That co-main event, Figueiredo Moreno 2, that's the main event for me. Not for nothing. If you didn't watch that first one, go back and watch it. I might watch that tonight instead of Mayweather versus Paul, because I'm so looking forward to this rematch. I couldn't love. For me, that was fight of the year. I think because they fought at the end of last year, and I think it wound up being Weili Zhang and Joanna wound up taking that title from a lot of people. But for me, that was fight of the year. So that's the main event for me. I'm really looking forward to that one. But we still have we still have this is their third event too with live fans. I forget, this is in Arizona. Shout out to Matt Hawkins, my co-host. He's actually going to go take his thirsty ass fan pictures amongst the fans in this event. But so this exchange, it made for a good banter, what have you, to get folks hyped up to see, and I think the argument is, again, that Vittori might just split decision means there's folks that thought, including a judge, that thought, oh, surprisingly, we have the LFA results on here. I'm surprised at that. I know I touched on that in the beginning. I'm just surprised that they're on this website then. There he is, Justin Wetzel. That's the guy you want to keep an eye out for. And then this was the main event here. Check out this knockout. McKinney, he goes stiff there. So McKinney, they featured his story just before that fight, and if you really want to know some background on him, Nolan King over at MMA Junkie wrote a really good piece on him that touched on what they talked about his background, how he like died twice and stuff like that. So McKinney and Terrence McKinney and Justin Wetzel, make sure you keep an eye out for them. They're probably going to get tapped to go to the UFC. I'm just surprised that we have some LFA results on here. I know these guys, we at MMAnews.com like to mostly cover the UFC. This fight right here, that's why I wanted to bring up the real Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Miguel Baeza. Listen, this is we don't have any highlights of that, of course, but there's a few highlights out there, but these guys literally pounded the hell out of each other for another fight of the year candidate. And I think I had Ponzinibbio picked to win 29-28, but I mean, when the scores are, one thing about combat sports, when you see all these 10-8 rounds and stuff like that, like ever since they introduced a 10-8, it's almost been like a slight almost to the effort or whatever. I don't know. Depends on who's watching and the experiences of the judges looking, but that fight was a fight of the year contender. And then we had the two, Marcin Tybura defeated Walt Harris. I felt bad. I had actually picked Harris to win because I feel like, he just needs a win. Big fan of his. And then obviously the main event with the very, very end TKO at round 1 of Rosenstrike versus Augusto Sakai to cement his place in the heavyweight division. So it was an ESPN Plus card, ended relatively early, which is why I was out, having drinks, and it helped me out because it helped me like think about what I wanted to talk about today with this whole, the chatter about Mayweather versus Paul tonight. So I mean, that's how you gauge your interest. Funny enough, the conversation did lead into Adesanya versus Vittori. So it's just weird how one of the things that I don't see these whatever the Paul brothers are doing. I said a comment and I had a few, so I'll say it here, and you can drop your comments and leave if you think I'm being a dick or not. But one of the things I said, it shows where boxing is when the Paul brothers are the ones bringing in numbers for pay-per-views, from Triller to this Showtime pay-per-view tonight, and I don't know what the Paul Woodley one's supposed to be at, but it says something about where the sport is, and again, I'm not saying that's as so much to be a dick, and I apologize if that's how it's being perceived. But a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how Ramirez Taylor, they unified that one of the few totally unified weight classes in boxing, and even Eddie Hearn was talking about how undercovered that whole event was. Um, like outside of the hardcores, and shout out to Front Proof Media. Those are all my hardcores. I mean, that's why boxing site that I was the MMA guy for, and and so like for them, I know they watch it, they were into it. And the guys over at the Last Round Boxing podcast that I talked to about boxing, it is the original combat sport. So I wasn't saying that to like insult boxing, but it's so you can look at it one of two ways. I try to be positive. So the way that I look at it is, listen, if they're bringing more fans, if this is the entry point to someone say, oh, I never really watched boxing and I like this whole thing. I wish there were more rounds. I wish there were more matches. I'd like to see what else is out there. I mean, that's pretty much how any fan base is built. You have the hardcores, but I mean, when you don't have to worry about hardcore fans leaving because they're the hardcore fans. You want new fans. I mean, people like to hate on you hear the term casual and all this stuff like that, but you want the casuals to come. You want the casuals to eventually become your new hardcores, because that's how the fighters are going to get paid. That's how your sport's going to survive and last longer and have more books like this written on it, and more pictures come up. More pictures be taken. Shout out to Esther Lynn. I believe she's shooting Mayweather Paul tonight. And if you don't know her from, she shoots a lot of combat sports in general, but a lot of UFC stuff and great photos too. So I don't hate it as much. And again, at the end of the day, we like to be entertained. So I don't mind. I'll probably be watching tonight, or I'm definitely going to be interested in the result. It's Sunday night. I feel like might be the only. I feel like the night that it's happening is more of an issue than the fact that it's a YouTube guy versus Floyd Mayweather. But they don't call him Money Mayweather for nothing, right? Sorry for drinking so much water, but it's like 90 degrees, and there's when it's nice in New Jersey, there's an air quality alert out, and folks like me with my asthma have to worry about it. But anyway, listen, that's it from me. Next week there's going to be a ton to talk about. Again, starting Thursday night, PFL 6, I believe it is. Friday night, Bellator 260. I'll be covering that remotely. I was supposed to go there to cover it, but Amtrak ain't working with me to get to Connecticut, so I can't really get there to get everything. It's actually easier to get it remotely, so we'll figure it out. But then there's I do my 7 takeaways piece for the I might have somebody join me actually for next week, because it'll be after all of this stuff, and I might need a little help. So hopefully we can talk about all 3 events, including tonight's, in the last in a half hour's time, because we usually try to keep this Sunday submission around 30 minutes. But again, thank you so much for those that watch this as I stream this live up on my Twitter. That's my Twitter. Make sure you check out all the results and news over at MMANews.com. And please like and subscribe to MMANews.com YouTube channel. Click the bell notification, all that crap I said in the beginning. Thank you so much. Listen, if you do watch that tonight, enjoy it. Enjoy the boxing match. It's at the end of the day, it's just entertainment. Like Floyd Mayweather said, it's fun for all of us. I doubt Floyd is going to hurt the boy too much, and I know Logan Paul's probably going to try to swing for the fences and do something. But I'm pretty sure Mayweather. Listen, at 44 years old, as someone like him, he still moves. If the average Joe, Logan Paul's probably just because he's young and athletic, he's probably just a little bit higher than the average Joe, but. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to swing at a guy like Floyd and miss. I mean, listen, I know people like to hate on the guy because of his cockiness or whatever like that, but I actually find them both to be, I don't want to say humble, but refreshingly honest. Like Mayweather said the comment about the boxing, but I don't really see Logan, especially Wednesday. I wrote an article at another outlet, some of his quotes where he said what made him different than Canelo and Conor facing Mayweather, but he he also said it, how it's surreal, and he's just kind of like the fact that he has nothing to lose because of who he's facing is what he feels gives him somewhat of an edge. But I mean, from their face-offs and things like that, I just feel like there's I think Floyd might have that boy's heart a little bit. But that's where we'll leave it. We'll see. See you next Sunday. Thank you so much for those that watch again the live, and I'm tapping out. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. See you next week. Peace.